Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lady Black Kaleidoscope Project. Yay! So today, hump day, I am going to talk about the Black at PWI Instagram movement. So I'm going to do this in two parts. So this part one is going to be about my own experience of being a black person, a black woman at a black girl, because I was a girl, black girl at a predominantly white institution. And then the second part is going to be my own tips, imperatives for various constituencies at PWIs. This is based on my experience. So for part one, I'm going to talk about myself. So here we go. So my private school journey began before I was even born, because my mom, who went to the neighborhood local Catholic parochial school, she was in a huge class of 40 kids, and she never got individualized attention, and that hurt her when it came to math, because she struggled with math and she wanted that individualized attention. So she didn't get it. So she said to herself, God is my witness. She's going to send her kids to private school. However many kids she had, she only had one. She was going to send them to private school because she wanted them to have individualized attention, and so, just smaller classes and more rigor and all that stuff. So then, fast forward, I was born, and she was still adamant about that. So, and one of the reasons why she put me in private school is that she wanted me to be able to compete in the world and to not be intimidated by white people or freaked out or scared by white people, because if I'm going to be successful in the world, I'm going to have to interact with them. So she wanted me to do it early. She wanted me to do it as soon as possible, which I would recommend to putting kids in that environment. It's terrible. It's baptism by fire, but you're going to have to face it at some point. So doing it early. That's what she did. She put me in a private school in West Philadelphia, which is, I don't know if it's still in existence, but she put me in private school from the beginning. Basically, I went to preschool somewhere else, and then in kindergarten she put me in private school. But I was only there for a year because it wasn't Catholic, and my mom wanted me to go to a Catholic school. So then she, when she was looking for Catholic schools, she got the Catholic Directory, a book, and the blue pages of the yellow pages, which really also dates me. And she researched. She called every number possible. She even accidentally called boy school, which they said we're all boys. And she asked for information. She read. She would spend time going to interviews and things. And we went to open houses, or we went to one open house, which was my grade school, and fell in love with it. And it was great. And so she was, adamant on doing that, and that's what she did. She did the research. There weren't any programs back then in 1988, 89 when she was looking. Now there are programs, but they start them at a later level. They're great. There's definitely merit, absolutely, to those programs, but I would still recommend doing it as early as possible, because it's just going to be easier in terms of the social emotional stuff in some way. It's still kind of it's kind of a weird thing. So being black and holy child. Okay, so first day of school, 6 years old, first grade. So it was the fall of 1989, and really dating myself. And so first day of school, I had my uniform on, everything like that, waited for the bus, waited, it never showed up. So then my mom had to take me to school. We went on public transportation. Luckily, the school was accessible by public transportation out in Drexel Hill. There's two Holy Childs in this region. There's Holy Child in Drexel Hill and Holy Child in Rosemont, which is on the main line. Montgomery County, Drexel Hills, and Delaware County more middle class, and then Rosemont is more, I guess, it's in a more upper class, neighborhood. So anyway, but my grade school was in a solidly residential middle class neighborhood in Drexel Hill. All white at the time. Now it's not. I don't know what Rosemont is like. It's probably all white too. But anyway, first day of school, my mom, we went out to Drexel Hill, and the secretary, we were like, my mom's like, I'm sorry we're late, all that stuff. And so they showed us where the first grade was, and we went down there. My mom held my hand. I was just like, okay. I was kind of nervous because I was late, and so we knocked. My mom knocked on the door. They opened the door, and everyone turned around and looked at me, and I freaked. I was like, all I saw were white faces. I didn't see anyone that looked like me. I was like, what? In my head, I was like, I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up for a bunch of white kids looking at me. And I did what any normal 6-year-old girl would do in a situation like that, or any 6-year-old period. I busted out crying. I was like, oh no, and they had to try and calm me down, pacify me. And I was like, in my head, I was like, don't go, mommy, please don't go. Don't leave me with these white people. I don't, it was terrifying. And it was already bad. I was a new girl in a new school, and they were all white. I did not sign up for this, as I said. But my mom had to leave. We both knew that she had to go to work, so she ended up she's like, come on, we gotta get it together, I'll be fine. She had to calm me down, and then she left, and then I luckily there was a black, the first grade assistant teacher was black, and my first grade teacher was pretty nice. So she was a white lady, older white lady. She was nice and sweet. Rest in peace. And we just I just slumped down in my chair and took a deep breath, and here we go. It was just, but I have to say, overall, I think Holy Child at the time was probably the best scenario situation for a young person of color. It was not diverse at all. There were hardly any people of color. There were hardly any blacks there. I think in my class we had a Filipina who was in first grade and left after first grade, and then a Puerto Rican girl who came in third grade, and she left in seventh grade. She was kicked out in seventh grade. And then 2 black boys, one that came in 4th grade, and then one that came in 7th grade. So there was never a black girl. And so I was like totally dejected, because every single year, every September, I'd be like, oh my God, please let there be a black girl. Please let there be a black girl. And it never happened. There was never a black girl there, and I was just so sad. I was like, I want a black girl. Oh my God. It never happened. So I just learned how to survive. I had to learn how to make friends. I had a class of, give or take, every single year, around between 20 and 25 people, co-ed. And I was the only person from the city. There was a kid who ended up moving, it was a white kid, he ended up moving to suburbs, but he stayed the whole time, and he was super nice. And luckily my classmates were pretty nice. Some of the parents, on the other hand, in my classmates, they weren't the nicest to me. They warmed up to my mom, and some of them were never that great. So there were always people you're always going to find people that are not going to be receptive. You can't expect everybody was. But the kids themselves were pretty nice. You're always going to have kids that you don't get along with no matter what color you are. And just as parents, there are going to be parents that you don't get along with no matter what color you are. But I guess for a black person, we're hyper aware of us being the only ones. Me and my mom were both that way. But some of them spoke, most were cool, and others were kind of lukewarm to us, and they had to warm up to us. And there's maybe 1 or 2 that never spoke, so. Parent-wise, to her or to me. And sometimes they were inconsistent. They would speak to her and not to me, and vice versa. But overall, it was okay. I got a great education, but it was pretty, but it was incredibly lonely. And the loneliness grew every single year. It didn't get any better. And I learned how to cope. I learned how to make it. I had to learn to kind of open up a little bit more. There's, I was a black girl from the city. They were white kids from the suburbs. I had a single parent family. A lot of them 2-parent homes. Some of them were divorced. Some of the kids were divorced, but the parents were co-parenting, and it wasn't the easiest. It wasn't the easiest, but I got used to it, and luckily my classmates were really nice overall, and it wasn't too bad, all things considered. Not knowing what I was going to have to go through in my next level, it was definitely a walk in the park in comparison to what I was going to deal with in the next level. When I was obsessed with my high school from the beginning because my mom looked at the lower school of it, Merion Mercy, which is a co-ed school, but I didn't get in because it was filled at the time. She looked at it when she was looking at schools for me in first grade, and we tried. My mom thought, like, maybe I'll take you out and put you in Merion because my school stopped busing. The Phillips School District stopped busing at 6th grade, and so at Merion they went to 8th grade. So I looked at transferring, but then I was like, I don't like this school. My mom didn't really like it either, and I wanted to graduate with my class. Even though I was completely lonely, I still was like, this is what I knew. This was out of frying pan. I didn't want to go out of frying pan into the fire. It was discomfort, and it started to become very painful. But at least it was what I knew. They were friendly enough. It was fine enough. I stayed. And then, so my mom accidentally, when she was visiting Merion, she went to Merion and saw that there were girls and they were so nice. And she's like, oh my goodness. So she always told me about Merion. She's like, oh, they were so nice and da-da-da-da. And so I had that in my head when I was looking at high school. And then the admissions director, who should be paid $1 million salary because she sold the school as like the city on the hill. I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, she sold it perfectly. I mean, she herself was an alum, but it was like this perfect, I was like, wow, I was just like, it's going to be so great. And I saw that there were more blacks. So I was excited. I was like, oh, maybe I'll find my black girl best friend, which I never found in my high school. But it just seemed so wonderful. And I was so excited. I couldn't wait. 8th grade, I was like, I checked out. I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm ready to go to Merion. It's going to be great. Little did I know what was in store for me at that school. So let's talk about it. Black at Merion Mercy. That school, that experience was the most traumatic experience of my entire life thus far. It was absolutely terrible. There are always silver lining. The music department, which I've talked about, was the silver lining. And some of my classes and some of the teachers that I met were pretty good, but overall, it was terrible. I got a great education. I am a really great writer because of the experience that I had at Merion, and musically it was really great, and even spiritually the religious part I was okay with. It was pretty good. I came from a pretty religious background with my parents who were pretty devout Catholics, and my mom still is. My grandmother was until she died. Merion was closer. I could get to it it was a straighter way for me on the bus, but it was, and that's, luckily, it's what allowed me to stay after school, because not everybody at my high school could stay after school because they had long distances. The Phillips School District, in all its wisdom, they don't bus private school kids only up until 8th grade. On high school, you're on your own, and that doesn't matter if you come from West Philly, South Philly, the Northeast, Germantown, Roxborough, out in the Northwest, like Center City. It doesn't matter. Like, if you want to go to private school, we'll only bus you till 8th grade. I mean, I guess understand because they have so many students and, I don't know, taxes and all that stuff. But it's unfair because kids from the suburbs, a lot of those kids from the suburbs, they'll bus until 12th grade. But for us Philly kids going to private school, which a lot of us are going because of the system being so not kind of dismal and not the strongest, except in certain select schools, like Masterman and Central and, engineering, science, and GAMP and all that. But anyway, so in high school, I had to get there the best way I could. So I took SEPTA. Luckily, it wasn't too bad. But I won an academic scholarship to my high school. I was the only person of color to win a scholarship my year to my high school. I won the academic one. You had to score 99 on the entrance exam, which I think, miraculously and thankfully did, because that was the only way I was going to be able to go to my high school. It was a partial, wasn't a full scholarship. And it was interesting being at the reception. It was like a bunch of white girls, and here I am, me and my mom were just kind of like do. But I was fine because I was used to being the only one, so it wasn't a big deal for me. I tested well. I tested into honors classes. I was the only one in my honors classes. There was another black girl who was in honors classes too, but we never saw each other because they separated us. We never were in classes together, which I had a religion class with her, which was not tracked. So there was A level, which was honors level, and then B level, which was just regular college prep. And so we never saw each other that often. And so then being in my classes every day, it was hard. I mean, it was just, especially reading, like the curriculum was not catered to, it was the same, it was just a very, in some ways, archaic curriculum. And it wasn't modern in any way. I mean, this is the late 90s, but still, like, it wasn't modern. I felt like, if my mom had gone there, it'd been the same curriculum that she had in the in the late 60s that I had in the late 90s. So we're like 31 years apart. But anyway, so reading Uncle Tom's Cabin in my school, like reading Uncle Tom's Cabin is terrible. Like, it's absolutely terrible. And, like being the only one, I mean, American literature was all white authors. I mean, in American literature, literally American, the only, I think, black person I read was Raisin in the Sun. And of course I was the mother because I was the only black girl in the class, and I'm big and I got boobs. And I guess the teacher, she probably saw me as a mammy and said, "Hey, Tracy, you're going to read that part." And I was just like, what? I mean, I guess so. I mean, I'm, I guess I'm going, but I was just kind of like, I feel some kind of way about that. So, because I'm big and fat and have boobs and, I guess I'm qualified to be the mom. I mean, it's just in Raisin in the Sun. So I was just excited that we were reading Raisin in the Sun, so it didn't matter. So that's just an example. There were just microaggressions upon microaggressions. It was just ridiculous during the day how it was. From teachers, from the students, because I got an academic scholarship, I struggled in getting into, not struggled, but I had some, when I had to place for the next year, like when we had to do course selection, and anytime you wanted an honors level class, you had to get approved from the teacher. So I went, and that was always a stressful time, and because at some point someone was going to question whether I should be in their class, and they'd say, "Well, what'd you get on your entrance exam?" I'm like, "I got a 99," and they're like, "Well, I can check," and I'm like, "Go check," and they checked, and then they let me in the class because they saw they didn't believe me. They thought I was lying. Like, really? Okay. So, just and then the students, I mean, just, we had girls coming from all over the region. We had girls from the city, we had girls from the Pennsylvania suburbs, from the New Jersey suburbs, and it was, they threw us kind of all together and think, okay, well, get along, which, didn't really happen because everybody went in their little cliques, basically based on race and geography. And just, and the thing is, yeah, white girls weren't always the greatest. I had some, the music department people were really great. Like, for the most part, the white girls in the music department, I was the only one. It was like me and maybe two other girls. One was biracial, one was all black. That sounds terrible, but she was African American. We were the only ones active in the department, and we were all friendly with each other. But the two girls, they had gone to Waldron, so they were used to being around white people, and I was used to being around white people, so it was fine. But there were black girls who came to Merion who weren't used to being around white people. They went to parish schools, and it was hard. It was a hard adjustment for them, understandably so. They're not they were 14 years old. They had all their lives been in all black environments, and they came to this environment, and then they see someone like me talking and being all friendly white girls. So they were like, one girl from my parish who was in my class, in my grade, she came up to me at church one time and was like, Tracy, why are you losing your blackness? And I was like, what does that even mean, losing my blackness? You know, but I understood what she meant. She thought I was an Oreo, and I was hanging out with, you know, white on Oreo, like black on the outside, white on the inside. Like, so I was really conflicted because I felt like I was too white for the blacks and too black for the whites. So I didn't know where I fit in. When I have those choices, I choose neither or both, depending on the situation. Or I just choose my own way. I choose my own path, which is what I did. And I always followed my own path. And that's really got started at Merion. So that's one good thing, is like I'm used to just doing my own thing because I've always had to, just to survive. When I graduated at Merion, it totally wiped me out. And I graduated. I remember there was like, when they said that we were graduating, like the lift, I felt this lift come off me. It was weird. It was surreal, but I was happy to do that. So backtrack. When I looked at colleges, I didn't want to go to HBCU, not because I didn't like HBCUs, but I didn't want to go from one homogenous environment, which I grew up in, all white, to another homogenous environment, which was all black. And I felt like I wouldn't have fit in with black girls. So I didn't do that. So there we go. So let's talk about my experience at Barnard. Black at Barnard. It was there we go. It was fine. I mean, I know that there are black girls at Barnard who did struggle. I struggled financially because I was poor and there was food insecurity and stuff like that. But overall, being black at Barnard was okay. Like, I could be whatever I wanted to be. I could be my rainbow self and have different friends from all different backgrounds, which I did. I totally did. And I had a great time. I didn't join the Black Student Union or the BSO or BOSS or any of those things at Barnard or at Columbia because I was scared. Based on my experience at Merion, I did not want to go somewhere where I felt like I wouldn't be welcome even by my own race. So that was really hard. And so I didn't do it. And it was tough. That was one part that wasn't that great. And I realized that there were different ethnicities within blackness. There was people from Africa, there were people from Caribbean, people from just America, and just America. But it was interesting because I never really knew that. So it kind of got me to think about ethnicity because I just thought black is black and that's what it was. And I didn't understand that there were different cultural differences within the black community. So that was cool at Barnard. And I kind of felt conflicted because my dad was from the Caribbean, who I didn't really have a great relationship with. But still, I have a Caribbean heritage. And then my mom is from America, so I identified more with that. But anyway, it wasn't too bad. It was fine. And it was a nice respite for what was going to come. My post PWI experience. It was pretty tough. I went to Barnard not thinking that I was going to move back to Philadelphia, but life had other plans, so I moved back to Philadelphia. It was the trauma and the PTSD that I had dealt with was like a monkey on my back, and I didn't really deal with it. I was in denial for a really long time, but it did show itself. Like, my city year experience in some ways reminded me of Merion, and I'll tell you that for a different episode about my city year experience. But it was just really hard, and it was hard, and I didn't tell my mom about my experience at Merion or at Holy Child or even Barnard until I was in my 30s. There was a survey that my high school sent to me in the email talking about our experience, and I told the truth on the survey about my experience at Merion, how traumatic it was and how hard it was, and I unleashed these feelings that were there, and they came out, and I finally told my mom about it, and we have had a 6.5-year-long discussion about what happened and why it happened and everything like that. So it was really hard. It was really traumatic. It was just a lot of emotions, a lot of things coming out, just a lot of rage, a lot of anger. I had a lot of anxiety, depression, On top of, as I said, in my 20s, I was caregiving. I had struggles with my job. Just I didn't have any friends. When I came back to Philadelphia, I had no friends. And I did sit here, in fact, because I needed friends in Philadelphia, because I figured my grandmother's time was almost up, and I wanted to have friends to be there for me, which she left sooner than I thought, but I was grateful to have that. Like, my teammates came to the funeral, and it was nice. So I've struggled in making friends in Philadelphia, because the way it works in Philadelphia is like most people, you have your friends, you met them before the age of 20, 22, like while you were in school. A lot of people stay here locally for college. I didn't do that. I went to New York City. So I didn't have those friends. I didn't have them. So I was really alone, and I tried to reconnect with a few people. There are like maybe one or two people that I talk to, and not all the time. They're not my best friends, but it's nice to have some connection from high school in particular. So anyway, I told my mom about the experience, and then when I was 33, went back to my 15th year high school reunion after party at City Tap House, and I ran into one of my few classmates that I had a significant relationship with, friendship with, and I told her about it. I finally said, my experience at Merion was traumatic and it was hard, and she was like, "What? Merion is racist?" And I said, "Yeah, and excuse me." And she was like, "Well, you have to go back. You have to face it. You need to do that," which I thought was really, at the time, I was like, "What? Are you crazy?" But like looking back on it now, it's like, I'm really grateful that she challenged me to do that, because it really, she was my white classmate, but like, it was just, that really, that stuck in my head. So she made me promise her. We pinky sweared. At the time, I was like, "Yeah, whatever, I'll just pinky swear to shut her up." But a promise is a promise. I am a woman of my word. So she wanted me to go back, and I ended up doing that, but in a way that I didn't expect. So fast forward to, that was in 2016, April 2016, 2018, January 2018. A little bit before I was going to open houses of like my grade school and the high school that I probably would have gone if I didn't go to Merion, which was an all-girls school within the city limits, Callahan High School. It wasn't private, it was just regular parochial. So I did that, and but then anyway, in January 2018, I ran into two girls. I saw the Merion uniform, and they were on the same L as me. And this L, for some reason, decided to stop. It just kept on stopping. And I was just like, "Okay, God, I get it. You want me to, like, talk to these girls." So I waited until basically almost a stop before mine to go up to them. And I was looking at them the whole time. And I was like, "I'm sorry that I'm staring at you, but I went to Merion." And they were like, "What? I didn't know black people went to Merion." Because when women come to us, they're white, so they didn't know. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, wow." And then, oh my God, and I was just like, "What?" And so anyway, I talked to them and I asked them how the experience was, and they're like, "Oh, it's okay." And I'm like, "No, how is the experience?" And they were like, "It's pretty bad," because they said that a girl had just gotten thrown out for saying the N-word, and it was this whole thing. So anyway, I went back to Merion, and I told them. I didn't go back to Merion. Not yet. So what made me go back to Merion was there was this article about the Eagles. It was around the Super Bowl when they won, and this is before they won, and they had an article. A black guy wrote an article about the contrast between the celebrations in West Philly and North Philly, all the black neighborhoods, and how it was in the white neighborhoods where people were like going crazy, and how it was super quiet in the black neighborhoods, and there was all this disparity with that. And I was like, "What? This is insane. This is crazy." And so I did that, and I commented on it, or my science teacher commented on my post, and she was like, oh, we're talking about this Merion race and stuff since Trump got elected and everything. And I was like, what? Like, we never talked about this. And so we ended up talking online, and then she was like, okay, like, and I was like, no, I need to come back and tell you this experience. So I did. On Black History, the first day of Black History Month, on actually Langston Hughes' birthday, I went back to Merion and I told her about my experience, and she was just shocked. She's like, I never knew. And I was like, well, I couldn't talk about it. So I didn't feel comfortable, and she was just in shock. So fast forward a few months, the principal resigned because there was this whole controversy, and so she resigned, and they needed a new principal. So they were having this search thing. They had a consultant come in, and they wanted to talk to alums. So I got an email. I told my mom about it. They wanted to talk to alum parents as well. So my mom and I, we tag team and went to Merion, and she went to her thing. I went to my thing. I talked about my thing at Merion, and it was just like, okay, I was the only person of color. It was a room of 15 alums from all different years, all different years. My high school was all girls high school, by the way. Sorry. And I was just like, okay, took a deep breath, and then I went out. I started with the good stuff, and then I dropped the bomb and said this was the most traumatic experience of my life. Literally, you could hear a pin drop, and I just was like, in my head, I was like, get it out, get it out, get it out, get everything out, say what you need to say, get it out, get it out, get it out. And so that's what I did. I got it out, and I had the floor for like 5 minutes, and then I finally stopped. Luckily, there was a friend of mine next to me, and she put her hand on my knee because I had told her that this was terrible, and she said, I got you, I'm going to support you, which was great, and I needed that. So that started a whole thing, and then I posted a few months before, I posted on Facebook. I outed myself in terms of having my experience, and overall the feedback was pretty good, but the rest of it was kind of terrible. And no, not the rest of it was terrible. Most of it was really positive. There was one of my classmates was like denying me and trying to gaslight me, and then a white acquaintance of mine came in and said, shut it down and say, I believe her. This is her story. This is how it is. And she and her argued, and then she shut it down. So I've been posting about my experience for years. And then I went back to my high school, and I went back and I said multiple times, I wanted a diversity, I wanted a diversity coordinator, director, and an administrative level type person who would focus on diversity and equity and inclusion. And I fought for it for 2.5 years. And then George, and I had gone, for the last 2.5 years, I've been fighting for it, talking to various different people behind the scenes. Then the George Floyd thing happened. And I was alone. I was the only person at these events, only person of color. There was no one else. And then all of a sudden, this George Floyd thing happened, and then after him, the flood. So that's when I heard of the Black Instagram account and all that stuff, and they had one for Merion, and then they had this other stuff. I just got the internet recently, and I just got a new laptop, so I just heard all this stuff. And so it's good. I'm happy that there are people who are standing up and saying it. But I just, I have been doing it for 2.5 years quietly before. So I was alone. But now I'm glad that there are people who are talking about it and stuff. But we got a long way to go. So basically, I've talked a long time about this, but this has been this is the defining thing of my life. I mean, my K-12 experience and the trauma that I experienced, particularly in my high school years. So I needed to talk about it, and I think you guys need to know, like, this is real. This happened. This really affected me. It still affects me to this day. But I have done a lot of inner work, a lot of spiritual work, a lot of screaming, crying, having no sleep, everything like that, just figuring things out and stuff. But I should be able to get an education. Any Black person or any person of color should be able to get an education without having an effect on such a detrimental effect to their social emotional development. This should not happen. This should not happen. I'm a human being. I deserve dignity and treatment and equal treatment and just compassion and care and love. I deserve those things. Everybody deserves those things. I deserve those things. I shouldn't have had that experience, but I did, unfortunately. But through a lot of prayer and a lot of work, inner work, I have overcome it. You know, I am not that experienced. I'm Tracy, but it has shaped into me who I am, and I think I'm a beautiful person, and I think the experience, it sucked, but it has given me a lot of strength and a lot of resilience, and I'm grateful for. I wish I didn't have to go through it, but it was my experience. That was my cross to carry. Everybody has different crosses to carry. Mine was my high school experience and my K to 12 experience. But I've worked through it, and I'm still, you know, it's a lifelong thing, but I've come victorious, and that's all that matters. So I'm going to end this part of the episode with a poem by Langston Hughes. So this is called Dark Youth of the USA. There's Langston. There he is. Ta-da! Sturdy I stand, books in my hand, today's dark child, tomorrow's strong man. The hope of my race to mold a place in America's magic land. American am I, none can deny. He who oppresses me, him I defy. I am dark youth, seeking the truth of a free life beneath our great sky. Long a part of the Union's heart, long ago at the nation's start, addicts died that right might abide and strength to our land impart. To be wise and strong, then studying long, seeking the knowledge that rights all wrong. That is my mission. Lifting my race to its rightful place, till beauty and pride fills each dark face, is my ambition. So I climb toward tomorrow, out of past sorrow, treading the modern way with the white and the black whom nothing holds back, the American youth of today. So that poem is dedicated to all the little black and brown and people of color, boys and girls of color. It gets better. You will get through this. We will get through